Okay, here we go. Welcome to Bible study this morning. Matthew 15 and 1 is where we're going to start, and we'll read as much as we can. And I want to talk to people primarily this morning who are maybe kind of at a loss over, and I'm sorry, these glasses, I look like Clark Kent. Why did I let me talk to them at the glasses store? They said, oh, these are very stylish. Yeah, if you're a 1954 newspaper man, yes, they are stylish. I look like D.B. Cooper. Does anybody know who that is? It's got jumped out of the airplane in the 70s with all that money. Anyway. Okay. Back to, I seriously, my Bible study just flew off the balcony. I'll probably get arrested. That's awesome. I guess God didn't want me to look at my notes. He just wants me to talk this morning, so that's what I'll do. Anyway, I'm on the Bible study. Woof! Thanks for tuning in. Goodbye. I know what I want to say. Listen, well, the people I want to talk to this morning are both traditional Christians and people who are sick of traditional Christians. I hear the same excuse from everybody of why they don't go to church. They say, you go to church, all right? Everybody uses an excuse not to go to church because the truth about it is people just don't want to get up and go to church. I'm not going to sit here this morning and profess that if you don't go to church, you're going to go to hell or some crazy thing like that. That's not the point. But I'm telling you, I'm going to encourage you to find a good church because I would encourage you to find a good apostolic church because I'm apostolic, but find a good church and go. And don't go and immediately get yourself involved in every little thing because that's when people get frustrated. All right? Find yourself a decent church and go because the Bible tells us to forsake not the assembling of ourselves together. And I think you can do that in a living room or a McDonald's place if they don't throw you out. But being together, the Bible shows us in so many times, in so many ways, how being together, people of faith, lift each other's spirits and they build each other. And you'll get things at a church that you will not get at home. Now, I'm talking to people probably this morning, some people who can't get out and go to church. Maybe you're physically unable. I don't know. Maybe you're in a home. I don't know. You can't do that. But try to get together with people of faith. I would like to encourage people. I've thought about sending flyers to nursing homes and let them know about this Bible study where people could come in and get together and we could study together and, do ministry for people who are kind of lonely anyway. It'd be nice. So anyway, I may work on that. That kind of reminded me of a scripture. This is off key, but I've done this Bible study now for about a year, 3 months maybe. It's kind of amazing that I've been doing it for that long. I look back at how many I've done. I've done dozens of these things. And I have a pretty good following. Not major, but the scripture came to me the other day. I was trying to think of how to increase my audience. Not that I care about numbers, but I want to reach people because I think I speak to people. I want to reach people. And the reason I started thinking about that nursing home thing is the Bible. Remember when the guy had a marriage supper? Maybe this is why my notes flew off the balcony. Maybe I'm supposed to talk about this. The guy had a marriage supper, and he went out to invite his friends, and nobody would come. And so he finally said, go out into the highways and hedges and get anybody that will come. Pick people up out of that ditch if you have to. Get people to come. So maybe I'm targeting the wrong audience. I need to reach people who maybe are not people I traditionally would think I need to speak to. So anyway, don't be picky about who. That's a whole other Bible study. Oh, and I think I've done it before. I would just start off on this path about not being picky about who you're talking to, witnessing to. Okay, let's get back to where I was. The reason I want to talk to people today, I want to talk to traditional religious people and people who are not. Because somehow we have to meet in the middle, okay? That's where we're at in this country. Nobody will get together and try to figure out how we're going to make this work. Because the people who are strict, typical religious zealots, Christians, evangelicals, they like to call us, we're frowned on by people who use us as an excuse not to come to church or have a relationship with God. And those are two separate things, coming to church and having a relationship with God. But I've always thought it's tough if you can't commit to at least, it's hard to parcel out time for God if you don't go to church, because otherwise you have to be really, can't think of the word I'm looking for. You have to force yourself to make time for God. Like, I've been down here at the beach now for 3 weeks. I said, I'll get a lot of study in for the Bible. I'll be able to do maybe even more Bible studies. You know what? I've done less because I just find something to do with my time, and that's life. That's the job of the enemy, is to make us as busy as possible and busy us out of a relationship with God. So one thing church does for you is it kind of forces you into that time with God. And then you'll find when you go to church and you hear a good message from somebody, you'll chew on it for a while. So it goes with you everywhere you go. I'm not here pounding people to go to church. I'm trying to let's just read this. Then came to Jesus scribes and Pharisees, which were of Jerusalem, saying, scribes and Pharisees, religious people. Right? The reason I'm talking about this is the excuse I hear from everybody is, I don't go to church because of the hypocrites. All right. I'm going to try to kibosh that today. Why do thy disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? All right? Listen, the religious people already are on Jesus and saying, why are your disciples transgressing against not the traditions of God, the traditions of the elders? So many churches have their own traditions. I'll go so far as to say, when you go into church, you probably ought to say, where does so-and-so, or where is a seat that nobody else sits in? Because if you go to a church where people have sat for 40 years, and you sit in their seat and you're a visitor, they are going to have a bad service. Okay, he goes on. For they wash not their hands when they eat bread. But he answered unto them, here's Jesus now, why do ye also transgress the commandment of God by your tradition? Took them back by surprise. For God commanded, saying, honor thy father and mother, and he that curseth his father and mother, let him die the death. But ye say, whosoever shall say this to his father or mother, it is a gift by whatsoever thou might be profited. What he's doing, he's turning this around on the religious people, and he's saying, this people draw nigh unto me with their mouth, and they honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. That's one of my favorite scriptures, and I've used it on people before. Because here's what, let's talk now to the religious people. There are so many people that I know that are Christians, and they love the traditions of the church. They love the traditions, a lot of them that man has made. It's not biblical, and they love those traditions. I kind of appreciate that, because we need to hold fast to our traditions, but not so fast that becomes our God. Many people I know seem to worship the traditions of the faith more than they do the traditions of God. And the first thing they worry about when a new convert might come to church is that they heed to the traditions of the faith and not have a relationship with God. Let me tell you right now, the relationship with God has to come before any traditions of faith or the church are going to take root. You can't bring someone. I'm going to probably get in trouble. Some people, my faith for even teaching that. But we've got the cart before the horse. See, we need to bring people to God. We need to show them love and affection and God's love and His mercy and His grace, and leave them alone with all this traditions of men stuff. So, I'm talking to the religious zealots and saying, lighten up. Now let me talk to the people who don't go to church because of this. Stop making excuses. I don't care where you go. If you're looking for the perfect church, you're not going to find it. If you're looking for the perfect president, you're not going to find it. If you're looking for the perfect anything, you're not going to find it. If you're looking for the perfect employee, you're not going to find it. If you're looking for the perfect place to work, you're not going to find it. You don't say, I'm not going to work tomorrow because there's a couple people there I don't like. You have to, because you have to make a living. Well, you might have to put up with some people to lay up treasures in heaven, not on earth. So stop being, you're accusing people of being intolerant, when you in fact are being intolerant of people who are intolerant. I didn't even understand that. Oh boy. Anyway, I think you get what I'm saying. We have to quote the great Rodney King, can't we all just get along? There's a happy medium here somewhere where us people who've been around the church forever, when you've been around something forever, and I see this with people, I'm thinking of like workers who've been like, maybe you worked in a bank for 30 years. Well, they're used to how they did things in 1984, and they still want to do things like they did in 1984. Well, banking has changed. Now, I'm not saying God's word changes or his laws change, but society is a little different. People are different. You can't just take people in the church anymore and say, okay, if you're now you've done whatever your faith says you do to be saved. Okay, you've done this. Now, here's the list of 84 things that you now have to do to come to church here. We can't do that anymore. We can't do that anymore. That is, you've got to let God change people. God changes people's hearts, not people. Because, let's face it, this generation, people anymore, don't like being told what to do by men. That's just the way it is. People don't want somebody slamming them with a bunch of rules. So if that's the way people are, let's let God take care of them. Let's leave them alone and let God do his work, okay? So he goes on, Jesus does, and he says, ye hypocrites, well did Elias, we already read it, but in vain they worship, teaching for doctrines and commandments of men. Wow, I'm telling you, this is speaking to me today. And he called the multitude, and he said unto them, hear and understand. Not that which goeth in the mouth defileth a man, but that which cometh out of the mouth that defileth a man. All right, the reason he's saying this, and uses this example, is because they were eating bread. So he's saying, here's another example. I think I used this in a Bible study before. David one time, and in one of these stories where they screamed at him, he said this. David went in the temple one time, and he and his warriors, his soldiers, ate the showbread that was in the temple, which was a big no-no. But they were starving. They had come back from battle. And Jesus said something, or God said something, which is amazing if you think about it. Keep this, if you don't listen to anything else I say today, listen to this. He said something to this effect. The Sabbath was not made for man, but man for the Sabbath. So anyway, he's saying you've got your rules backwards. When the rule is no longer effective against what the rule was made for, then the rule becomes stupid, if I could. If you're starving to death and you go into a Catholic church and they have the bread, the unleavened bread for the the holy bread that's for communion, you're not going to go to hell because you eat that and you're starving to death. The rule wasn't... I don't know how to best explain this. Here's an example. I go to the doctor. I have something wrong with maybe my hip. I've got some hip problems, so I'll use that as an example. I go to a new doctor. She walks in. It's a woman. You know, sometimes you go to the doctor, you don't know who's coming in practically. Nurse practitioner, doctor, whatever. She says, we need you to take your clothes off because we need to make sure there's no outer damage to your hip. All right? I'm taught that I don't take my clothes off in front of a woman that I'm not married to. That's my faith. Well, if I do that, I don't feel like I'm sinning because I'm not doing it for that purpose. I'm doing it because I'm seeking medical treatment. Maybe that's a dumb example. I don't know. But the point is, okay, let's say there's a law. Here's maybe a better example. There's a law that says you can't swim in a pool. You cannot enter a pool at the beach after midnight. Let's say Daytona Beach sets a rule because somebody drowns in the middle of the night. Can't go into any pool, public pool, after midnight. That's a law. We're walking by. My boy falls in the pool and he can't swim. Am I going to stand there and say, oh my gosh, I wish I could save my boy, but it's against the law for me to go in that pool at midnight? Of course not. It's ridiculous. But that's what we've done some with the traditions of men. We have made the rules so intense that the rule becomes more important than a relationship with God to people. So, I'm talking to the stiff-necks out there, lighten up a little bit. And I'm talking to the other people, you know, and there was a place in the New Testament where Paul said not to be an offense to other people. So there are things even in my faith that maybe I don't really agree with. But I do them for this reason. I don't want to offend somebody of my faith. So I follow probably all the traditions that they've set in my faith because I don't want to be an offense to somebody. All right? But at the same time, Paul turned around and said, and this is what I'm saying to you guys today, Paul turned around and said, okay, so don't do things that might offend somebody, but also you people on the other side, don't be so easily offended. Quit worrying about what other people are doing and make sure your own heart's right. Hey, I got enough to worry about with me. When somebody comes in and they may not be doing every rule I think might be appropriate, I got more issues to deal with my own salvation that I'm searching fear and trembling than to pick at somebody else. I think it makes some people feel good because they think as long as they're making other people toe the line that somehow that makes them righteous. Well, it doesn't. I got news for you. I don't know why I have this on my mind this morning, but I think what we're doing in the faith as Christians is we're turning people off to God. And there's almost no way you can do that because God is mercy and grace and love and affection. He's everything people need in this world today, and we've turned it so sour to people that they want nothing to do with it. I don't want that. I want to tell people while I sit here, and this will be what I say. I want to tell people I wouldn't be where I am today without God. And yeah, I've had to give up some things in my life. I've had to turn some things around, but God's been very patient with me and kind and merciful to me. And I'm still not perfect. I still make mistakes all the time of things that I just can't seem to get a grasp on in my life. God is merciful. He's kind. He's loving. So when you break the rule of maybe eating showbread on the Sabbath, even if you're doing it wrong, there's a merciful God for you. He's not a taskmaster, the Bible says. He's not a taskmaster. He's not a schoolmaster. He doesn't crack your knuckles every time you do something. He's loving. He's like the greatest. Think back to a teacher you had in school that was just so kind, and when you didn't understand something, they would come over and gently explain it to you. I remember one teacher we had in the first grade. She was a substitute. And I was always kind of a backward kid. I had a tender heart. My boy has the same thing. And I was doing something. I think I had my hand hanging off my desk or something. She came back and cracked my knuckles with a ruler. And of course I cried like a freak, which then embarrassed me in front of all my schoolmates. Probably made them think I was some kind of baby. Okay, this is when you're a taskmaster and a schoolmaster to other people, and you're always on people, first you're creating doubt in them and themselves. You're creating embarrassment with them, with other people. You're doing a lot of damage to people. Okay, so what I'm going to tell you now, I've preached to the taskmasters. I want to preach to the people who won't go to church or find God because they think the people are hypocrites. No excuses. When you meet your Maker, you're going to have no excuses. Sorry, I got to get a little harsh here in a minute. God gives everybody a way. One day, every person, the Bible says that every knee is going to bow and every tongue is going to confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. One day, everyone, there's nothing you can do about this. You're all going to meet your Maker. And you're going to have to stand in front of him. And you're going to have to say why you did this or why you didn't do that. Well, let me tell you, there's coming a time where grace is going to end. And then you're going to meet your Maker. And you can't get up there and say, I would have followed you more if there hadn't been all these hypocrites. There's not going to be any hypocrites standing with you. There's not going to be anybody else. It's going to be you and God. We all have to bear some kind of cross, and sometimes it's other people. We all have to bear things that may come against us in our relationship with God. That's part of the fight, is to maintain your focus on God. So I'm telling you this morning, forget the traditionalists, forget the people the hypocrites, if that's what you want to call them. Forget those people and go find a relationship with God. And I encourage you to find a church where there's some loving people. I love my church. We go in there, nobody's judgmental. They're all just happy people. I love it there. I'd encourage you to come to my church if you don't have one you live close. But, someday there's going to be somebody there that gets on people's nerves. Well, I'm not going to leave. And I'm not going to let them affect me. Because my relationship is not with them. My relationship is with God. So I encourage you today, if you're staying away from God because people at church have hurt you, or traditionalists have hurt you, or hypocrites have turned you off to God, that has nothing to do with God. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He never changes. He created all this, and He knows your heart more than you do. And He's a merciful and loving God. But if you make no effort at all, and you use other people as an excuse, I'm sorry. That's not going to cut it. He'll be merciful to the end, but then at the end, that's the end. I love you. I'm glad my notes flew off the balcony because I felt like I talked more from my heart. Have a good one, and we'll come back to you and do this again next Saturday, maybe before. I don't know. I need to catch up on a couple. Have a good day.